Hey, welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, president of Texas Values. Great to be with you on a glorious week in the state of Texas. It's a little bit harder to say that this week. I'm going to talk about why in just a few minutes. But some important things to cover this week. We did the show a little bit early last week, so I could have time to visit with a friend and a grassroots leader of ours from the Central Texas area. But some important things that we want to talk about this week, because next week is the big show, okay? That is, I don't know if you can see my cup here. Texas, don't worry about me. Go back to the graphic. Texas Faith Fest is next week. This is our 8th year to have this extraordinary event. We're going to educate, motivate, and activate you on the issues of faith, family, and freedom. And we're going to have some help. We're going to have some great speakers that are going to be speaking at the event to help you do that. This is a series of different educational panels. There will be an opportunity for people to ask questions, to submit questions, to have some interaction. We're going to have some VIP sessions. We're going to have some instructional sessions. We're going to teach you how to do some of the things that we do and how to make more of an impact on the values that we all care about in your community, but certainly throughout the state. And, you know, sometimes we have speakers that were there the year before. Sometimes it's been a couple of years. So usually the lineup is different. Maybe there'll be some carryover. The governor's going to speak this year. All right. Last time he was at our event 4 years ago, and he did sign a piece of legislation at our event. It was pretty extraordinary. He signed a pro-life bill. Excuse me. So he's going to speak this year. Super excited about that. I get to interview him, and it's called like a fireside chat setting or whatever, you know, like Q&A. It's just me and the governor. What will I ask him? All right, inquiring minds want to know, what should I ask him? Why don't you submit some comments? Maybe y'all have got some ideas. You want to know this about the governor. Super excited about that. David Barton's going to lead our panel on the Texas 10 Commandments law. That's going to be on Saturday. I'm just going to tease a little bit of information. I think we're going to drop the entire schedule tomorrow so you can see who's speaking when. It's a 2-day event, Texas Faith Fest 2-day event. All right, Friday and Saturday, September 26th and 27th next week. The dinner with David Barton on Friday night is sold out. Man, that got hot quick, okay? We didn't have a lot of seats either. It was about 100, but that was by design. We want a really cool atmosphere. People get to know each other. But that's going to be at Steiner Ranch Steakhouse overlooking beautiful Lake Travis. You will literally see the sunset as we're sitting down to dinner. I went out there and checked it out. We had a little bit of fun out there. So a lot of work still to do, a little wrap up or whatever, getting things ready for next week. We've got some absolutely extraordinary things planned for you. Some things we're not going to talk about until the event. It's going to be a surprise, but it's going to be well worth it. But there's going to be some heavy hearts, okay? And we talk a little bit about Charlie Kirk on my own, but also we have a guest who we're going to have a little bit of that conversation as well. Paula Scanlan, who's going to be a guest. She's going to be one of our speakers next week at Texas Faith Fest. She's going to be our guest today on the Texas Values Report. She's been on before a few times. She is a senior fellow at American Principles Project, serving for that great organization, and with Terry Schilling as their external director, but still doing work on the Save Women's Sports issue. You maybe remember a few years ago. That's where we got to know Paula and heard a little bit about her because she was a former teammate of Will Leah Thomas, the swimmer from Texas, who was swimming at the University of Pennsylvania this is a male swimmer swimming on the women's team in the women's locker room where a lot of these things started. And she's taken that really experience and circumstance not only to defend herself and raise awareness, but to make a difference across the country in such a courageous way. Paula, welcome back to the Texas Values Report.
Thank you guys so much for having me on today.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you in person next week. I know you've got some family in the area, in the Central Texas area, so I know that'll be fun and a little bit extra reason and to enjoy being in town and being part of the event. You spoke at this event 2 years ago and had a great turnout, great interest, a lot of people that wanted to hear from you and get to meet you. And, some things have changed since then. They've gotten better on the women's sports issue, if you will. We just passed the Texas Women's Privacy Act. And so I know that's where you started. And I'm not saying that that's changed a lot, but your reach and your influence and voice has broadened a little bit, or at least reached a whole lot more people. And I'm excited about it. The panel that you're going to be speaking on, that Paula's going to be on, I believe is called Save Women's Sports from a Moment to a Movement. And that's really what we've seen the past 3 years.
Yeah, no, definitely. Exactly that. I mean, when this first happened to me, it started actually 4 years ago now, which is
Yeah.
really wild to
Yeah.
think about. It's back in fall of 2021 that William Leah Thomas, in his 6'4" tall frame, walked into my women's locker room and stayed for an entire season. And after that, I really convinced myself that this was just one crazy event, and it was an Ivy League school that had radical ideology, which they did. But this turned into something that happened widespread across the country. I mean, it was happening in red states, it was happening in blue states, it was happening in every community. I swear every weekend in California, I see a story of a boy taking away opportunities from girls in track and field. I mean, it's everywhere now, but back then it wasn't. And so again, I'm so grateful really to even reflect with you. I think you were one of the first people that ever reached out to me after my story broke. I think actually you called me within the first week saying, hey, we'd love to get you in front of Governor Abbott. And Texas is a state where I actually have a
Yeah.
lot of family. And so it was very meaningful for me to be part of the cause in Texas. And when I gave my remarks in Texas 2 years ago, and I think that it was previewed at the beginning of this when we sat with Abbott and it
Yeah.
was me and Riley and you guys were all
That's
there to
right.
support. Um, I had said in that speech, I have cousins that live here in this state, and when they eventually have kids, I want them to be protected. And I didn't know any of this, and in that time frame, my cousin got married and had a baby. It's actually a son, so won't be on this issue, but hopefully she'll have a daughter soon. But it really
Yeah.
was actually someone tangible that I was fighting for when I was advocating out in Texas. And so that's something, again, I'm just beyond grateful for your guys' championship and leadership in all of this. But really, just to be part of this all together and how many new voices we've brought in over the years. Again, we couldn't have done it without you guys, really.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And, we are sort of a persistent bunch when we see those things. And part of that, though, is look, I've been involved in this work for 20 years on a variety of different issues. I know firsthand, and a lot of people don't know this. I talk about it from time to time, not as much as I used to. When I was in law school, I sued my university because they were restricting the free speech rights of the pro-life group that I was leading. I almost got kicked out of school. They scared so many people in our group that they quit our group. Literally, it was just me. I was the only one left in holding the line for the organization and the group. While listening to my professors talk about it, in class when I was in law school, we ended up winning that lawsuit. Alliance Defending Freedom was one of their first big cases. And so I'm grateful. But I remember that experience myself, right? And so I know personally how difficult, and we've walked this walk with a lot of different parents and individuals and so on, and kids as well. And we know how difficult it is when you're in those circumstances. You got all this pressure come on you. That issue was starting to get people are starting to notice it and get concerned, but still there wasn't a lot of people around that maybe would back you up. I mean, it really can be a tough circumstance to put yourself out there. And as I recall, I mean, there were probably pressure from the university and not in a good way on you. And so we recognize that. So when we see that, we saw you were like, wait a minute, she was a teammate. Oh my gosh, we've got to get in touch with her and help her voice reach more people and let her and many other people like hey, you're not alone in this, right? You've got some backup, you've got some support. And we want to help you tell the story. And look, a lot has happened, right? You were part of a bill signing that we did here in Texas a couple of years ago, and other efforts that we've been involved in have been so key. There's a young lady that's speaking at the event. You've probably met her maybe by now, Brooke Slusser, who is a volleyball player from Texas. Anyway, I like to call her Riley Gaines' little sister. She's not that much younger than Riley, but, blonde, they kind of have some things in common. And she's been a warrior, but the same thing. She had a male compete on her team for 2 years, Paula. They were sharing a room. This guy, you've probably heard about this story from San Jose State, was requesting to be in her hotel room every time they traveled. Anyway, it just... so she's going to be speaking at our event, but you and Riley, I mean, y'all coming forward so many years ago, it hasn't been that long, but it feels like a little bit, has paved the way for so many other young ladies now that, are confident about pushing back on these issues.
Yeah, no, exactly that. I mean, I think we still haven't completely finished the fight.
That's right.
I mean, in Texas, the work has been amazing because you guys have people like you and such great leaders. But I mean, I'm from the Northeast. I see firsthand the parents that have to deal with this. It's just unimaginable, really, that we have, politicians sitting in seats of power that say men and women can be the same thing, and they have no acknowledgement of basic biological reality, which, by the way, was not a controversial opinion to have even 10 years ago. So it just continues to show us just how far the left has fallen. I think that this was really a lot of people's first step into seeing what's going on here. And even some of the people I've known through the movement that are self-identified as Democrats that agreed with us on this issue, they started to tiptoe over and say, okay, well, you guys are right about this. Maybe you're right about other things. And many of those people I've met through this journey have now completely moved over onto our side and are now not just Republicans, but active voting Republicans. And so, again, this issue's really showed us that it was a great way for us to practice articulating our ideas, not just on this issue, but on so many others. And so I think that us on the Republican side, conservative side, have really done a good job of championing this and showing, again, how much we can do and showing how our ideas are simply just better, because they are.
Well, we're talking with Paula Scanlan. She is a senior fellow at American Principles Project, but also was a former teammate, if you will, of Will Leah Thomas. This is the male swimmer from Texas who went to the University of Pennsylvania and decided he was going to swim on the women's team and was allowed to, was in women's locker rooms, and this was the big issue that blew up 3 or 4 summers ago at the NCAA championships. And there was a young lady there, well, a little bit older lady there, if you will. She wasn't a current college player, but Beth Stelzer was, holding up this big sign that said "Save Women's Sports." There were a lot of people that were trying to, get some visibility. Now you've got people like Jillian Michaels, right? Who, from what I understand, is, and she even posted about this earlier today because of her concern about how people were talking about Charlie Kirk, but that she primarily has been on the left, and now she's seeing how she's being treated for something as common sense as this issue with Save Women's Sports and others. You've got Martina Navratilova, right? One of the most accomplished women tennis players ever, but a very public lesbian and someone who criticizes President Trump all the time, right? But here she is with us on this issue. Texas Women's Privacy Act was a bipartisan bill that was just passed this special session. And it wasn't a huge amount of Democrats, but there were some. And some of that is because they know that voters care about this issue. This was a big election issue. You might have noticed this. It was a big election issue at the national level, and it certainly touched Texas a little bit. Did you see that as well? In last November?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many people voted strictly on this issue. It was really the game changer for actually like the suburban mom vote, right? Before they'd always been left leaning. And I think this time around, they actually swung towards Trump. And I have to say that this is probably the issue that swung them. Watching their young daughters be violated in locker rooms and on sports teams was really just a game changer for so many elections. And I think even at the state level as well. I think people were considering that when they're voting in their state house members or their state senate members as well.
No, I think you're right. And, look, it helps us to add more strength to the argument when there are more voices, right? And sometimes that's just the way it happens. It starts with a few people, and then a lot of other people start understanding it, and then the stories start coming. And some of that is these things have been happening to some degree a lot more before the past couple of years, but people weren't saying anything. They were being quiet. They were nervous. They thought they were going to be the only one. They were going to be singled out. I've heard that so much from parents along the way. And so finally, we're seeing sort of the floodgates open, sadly, of a lot of these things being reported, but hopefully it's moving us in a direction. We're going to see a stop to a lot of these things. President Trump has put a lot of pressure on California and other states to say, hey, we're done with this, right? It's been a part of an executive order and really a key part of the beginning of his administration. It's not like some issue that they got to, 4 or 5 months later. From some of the first days, they were making this a priority. I know, too, as you've worked on this issue and others, you've gotten a lot more visibility and an opportunity to have your voice heard. And it's my understanding, too, and I'm going to share this real quick on my Facebook feed because I want to make sure we've got more people in the conversation. I'm going to just share to my personal page our live feed. And you've had an opportunity during this time, and maybe while you were still swimming, but an opportunity to spend time with Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk. I know, gosh, we've done a little bit of video, some commentary. I'm still a little bit in shock. It's been just a week, and it's been very difficult. And I met him once and have been around some of his people. What's it been like for you?
I think shock is a great example. I really struggle with how to feel. I struggle with how to process the loss of somebody that was so important to our movement, but also somebody that I knew by name and knew me by name. And then on top of that, dealing with just the disgust and evil that's in this world with all of these left-wing people. And this is not radical left people. Mainstream Democrats celebrating a brutal and disgusting assassination that happened, by the way, in front of children. College-age kids were forced to witness this, and somehow this is a matter for celebration. I mean, just dealing with that anger and just how to go forward with that being the reaction has been something I've personally been really, really struggling with in this situation. But what I do know, and a positive that I will share, and I actually shared it with my friend Riley Gaines this morning, is I've heard from so many friends that have never really identified themselves as being religious people. Maybe they grew up Christian and they had some ideas and concepts of who Jesus was, but they never really felt called to be Christian and called to be a part of a church community. So many of those people have told me that they've bought Bibles this week, that they went to church for the first time on Sunday. And so Riley and I, again, we're really talking about this morning, and we just said, if there's such a horrible thing, if there's one positive, I mean, this is really it. I cannot explain to you how full my church was this Sunday. I'm Catholic, so if Catholics are watching and they know, communion took so long this Sunday because of how many people were just trying to get in line and even just not even take communion, receive a prayer from our priest. I mean, it was so heartwarming. And I was sitting there being like, wow, I think this is one of the longest church masses I've ever sat through in my life. But it just goes to show just how much of a revival there is. And so that is the one positive that I'm looking to, that I'm grateful to share with all of us, the listeners here, and with you, just that we're seeing that, and we have to continue to build on that. And really there's so much need for Jesus in this world right now. And I think that has to be what we take away from this.
There's no doubt. We're talking with Paula Scanlan. She is senior fellow at American Principles Project, led by our good friend Terry Schilling. She's also a Save Women's Sports leader in a variety of issues that touch on that as well. Same thing. I mean, look, our church was packed, and I was so encouraged that our pastor took time to talk about this issue. And I was curious if he was going to, and like yourself, I'm Catholic. Sometimes, they can stick to a more specific script and, whatever the case may be. And so, but I know that my pastor also is very in touch with what's happening in the culture and is not afraid to connect with people. And you had a shooting at a Catholic church a couple of weeks ago, and there were, elected officials in Minnesota that were attacked. There have been a couple of different things. And so I really enjoyed how he put, and 9/11, right? 9/11 was the day after the shooting, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but he did mention Charlie Kirk by name. And I appreciated that because, you look at not just our country, and I wasn't really in touch with this. I've met Charlie once, visited with him, took a picture. We have a member of our team, Megan Flanagan, just got married, Megan Benton, before she was a part of a Turning Point USA chapter at the University of Texas, and they had an event there with Charlie, so it hit home a little bit. But, the impact and response, like internationally, I was like, wow, look at all these other countries where his legacy and his impact and TPUSA had I didn't realize it had gone that far. It was impressive.
No, it really was, and I think he touched so many minds, and I think this is a story I told a lot of people. One of the first people I heard from after the news broke was actually my college-aged cousin. And I love him. He's like my little brother. We're not that far apart in age, but he's not a man of many words. I text him all the time. I can barely get a response. He's too busy trying to study and make new friends in college. And he was one of the first people that texted me and just expressed how concerned he was about the situation, how much he was upset by this loss personally. And this is a 20-year-old boy we're talking about. He's never expressed emotions to me once, but seeing his reaction to this really, really showed me just how much of an impact Charlie had, not just on young people, but on young men in particular. I've noticed this, a lot of the people that are taking this harder than others are males, and it shows just how much of a need there was for a strong male leader that had Christian values, that had conservative values, and just stood up for really America as a whole and American values. And that's really what we're fighting for here. This is not about right versus left. This is about, do you love America or do you not? And Charlie loved America, and that's really what I saw with him every day. I mean, I was so grateful to have spoken at a couple of Turning Point chapters throughout the times that I've done some college speeches, and just, again, how much he really meant to these kids and how meaningful it is to feel like you're part of a community that supports and believes in you and has these shared values, again, that are just simply based in just loving America.
Well, and what's interesting too, Paula, is that more recently in the past year or two, and I'm not saying that Charlie Kirk wasn't very involved in his Christian faith before, but I felt like he was expressing a lot more, or you would hear a little bit more of that, or he was focusing a little bit more on that. And I think that was greatly appreciated. He got married, he had kids, so all of those things I think may have touched on that. But I think, as you get to this place, right, this awful circumstance last week, this assassination of Charlie Kirk, I was having lunch with a couple of, grassroots activists. We got together, we were talking about our event for next week. And I, just sort of by habit, checked my phone or whatever when I got in the car, did I miss any calls or whatever? And I just, I was kind of in shock. And then 2 hours later, he was gone. I mean, the speed of that, and then obviously the violence of what happened. And I got home, I have three teenage kids, one in college, the other two in high school. And I was hoping they had not seen the video, particularly the close-up one, because it's very graphic. But they had, and, we talked about it, and it's the same thing that you're saying. I think a lot of times the conversations we talk about our issues, even though my kids are being my events and stuff like that, they're like, oh, I heard Charlie Kirk say this thing, and so I'm glad that, if they're going to listen to anyone, they were listening to him. But, he was sort of the spokesman for this younger generation that, to your point, more patriotic, more involved, and more reachable, accessible. I mean, Charlie's like right in public and all these events, and I mean, but I mean, obviously his impact in his relationship with the president let people say, as a young person, you can make a difference even at your age. You don't have to wait. Do it now.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it's even crazy to think about the fact that he was only 31. I think I've only been involved with politics for so many years, and I remember even when I first heard about Charlie Kirk, I was always, sort of conservative leaning, but I wasn't really like clued into all of the big people who were speaking on campuses or even had podcasts. I was just like sort of generally like, I knew I was conservative. I knew I was obviously Christian, all of the things. And I remember during BLM, when I was on my college campus and I was in Philadelphia, I can speak to how insane it was and the damage that we saw. And one of my friends had suggested at the time that we should maybe try to start a Turning Point chapter. And that was really when I discovered Charlie Kirk. It was during 2020. And I said, what's Turning Point? What is this? And from then on, I knew that. And then eventually when I joined the conservative movement, I got the opportunity to meet him. I got the opportunity to be on his show. I got the opportunity to see him also advocate for a cause, to even name the cause that I was part of by name. I mean, he talked about Leah William Thomas on many of his segments. And the one story I'll share, and I don't even know if I've publicly shared this yet, is after I went on stage at the RNC with Riley was supposed to go on Charlie's show, and Charlie's producer Andrew had said, why don't you go up with her? And I said, no, I don't, he booked Riley, and he goes, no, don't worry, Charlie will remember you. And I go, I really don't think that he will. And he said, no, trust me, Charlie remembers you. And he turned to Charlie during the commercial break and said, hey, Charlie, do you remember her? And he looked down at me and he says, oh my gosh, Leah Thomas's best friend, obviously in a sarcastic tone. And it was one of those things, it was just like kind of a funny moment. And obviously we both ended up getting on stage there, but he remembered me and he had no reason to remember me. And it was in the way he presented, it was just such a lighthearted, funny comment, because that is exactly how, you sarcastically would introduce me to someone. And so, I'm just grateful that he even remembered or knew my name and helped, advocate for the horrible thing I went through. I can't even express just how lucky we were even to have him for 31 years, truly. Yeah,
look, talk about the impact he's made in such a short amount of time. It's hard to see anything that matches that, certainly not in recent history. And look, we're going to have a tribute to Charlie Kirk at our event, Texas Faith Fest. There's a panel where we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that. Morgan McMichael, who continues to be a Turning Point USA contributor, is going to be on that panel on Friday. Megan Benton, now Megan Flanagan, her new married name, she's going to be on that panel. She was a part of TPUSA chapter at the University of Texas. And we're going to have some other special things that relate to that, to just this awful assassination of Charlie Kirk, but also to honor his memory and legacy and be a part of helping people move forward with kind of what do we do next. We're grieving, it's still hurting, but we also have work to do. So we want to help people feel encouraged that we're all together going to sort of pick up that bloody microphone, if you will, and continue those issues and come together. But it's been a lot to deal with, I know, for a lot of people. And so I think also try to have some heartfelt moments to let people know that we care about them, that, we can understand, that there's been a lot of difficulty and grieving and just kind of grappling with it. And so, but I'm excited to have you there because, look, it's hard. I can talk about these issues all the time, but I didn't live through it like you did. Not only spending time with Charlie Kirk and TPUSA, I was at RNC last year too. It was phenomenal, right? But where it started for you, because I think a lot of times people think that, they said at our legislature, oh, y'all are making this up. These things aren't happening yet. We're like, we have this long list of examples, right? There's a legislator in the area that is basically, he called me and our organization a liar for the school district near us, Round Rock. You may be familiar with the family here, and we're like, because the truth is so powerful, right? And you're a representation of that. So I'm looking forward to having you there. You're going to do a great job. And that's just a big reason why people need to get tickets. Come see Paula this weekend. But we're looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really, again, I just want to echo how grateful I am for you guys' leadership. You represent such a large state with so many different people, and you've done such great work for the people of Texas, but also setting an example for America and standing up for American values and American principles. And so I am forever grateful for you guys, and I'm so excited to get back out in Texas. I get to meet my cousin's baby for the first time. I get to go to their conference. I get to see my aunt and uncle. So I'm going to, obviously it's such a heavy time in my heart right now, but I'm trying to make the most of it. And I think that together next week, we really will be able to do that.
No, I do too. And in case, those things aren't enough, we're going to have some Texas barbecue too. We got Chick-fil-A on Friday for lunch. We've got Rudy's Barbecue on Saturday for lunch. And so it's hard to not feel a little bit better when you get a little bit of barbecue, Texas barbecue in you. So, but I'm excited about it. So next week is Texas Faith Fest, September 26th and 27th. Paula Scanlan is going to be one of our speakers. Come see her, meet her in person. We're going to have a radio row. Maybe she's going to do some interviews with some of the media outlets. We're going to probably get some clips from her. It's going to be a lot of fun. But Paula Scanlan, Senior Fellow for American Principles Project, thank you for being our guest today on the Texas Values Report.
Absolutely.
Okay, as Paula exits our Zoom room, I just want to, kind of pre-sell some items that we hear. Well, not sell. Advertise. Merch, okay? Am I holding this the right way? This is kind of a smaller print. Okay, Arctic, y'all got to help us out. Please, help us print this bigger next time, all right? We love this Houston-based business, but you got to help us out here. Anyway, it still looks good, though. This is our logo, if I can get it closer, Texas Faith Fest. This is the event, the official event. Insulated tumbler. We're bringing back these hats. God bless Texas. I like the gray one. A lot of people like the red one. Oh, no, that's not the right one. Okay, we have a red one in that version. This is a limited edition hat, though, by a great company called One True God. It's got a cross right there in the star of the Texas flag. You want to see that? That's fun. And you can see this on my lapel pin. I'm grabbing it, but right over here, these little Ten Commandments lapel pins that you can get. I think we're going to have some from purchase. Some people that are sponsors that were very generous to donate to the event, they're going to get one complimentary. But that's to talk about the Texas Ten Commandments law and to remind people of that. And gotta have the Don't California My Texas Values koozie, okay? Gotta have that. Great conversation starter and keeps your drink cold, all right? And maybe in honor of Charlie, I'm going to throw this stuff out at the event, okay? Because he did a great job and always getting a lot of hype and energy. But it's going to be some heavy hearts, okay? And come to the event for that, right? There's something about being together. They did a prayer vigil not far from here in Williamson County in Georgetown, close to where Austin, where our office is and where we tape the show. And I left my daughter's high school game. She's the high school cheerleader. Left, missed her, middle school, her halftime performance. But I had to, and I talked to her about that afterwards because for everyone to come together, on our historic courthouse steps over there in Georgetown, led by Michelle Evans and Jennifer Fleck, great friends here in the area, to come together, and to hear Erica Kirk's voice coming through, right? They had the speaker set up when she was Charlie Kirk's wife was giving her remarks and so on, just 2 days after all of this has happened, right? And all the American flags and people just really still in shock, like probably many of us are now. It's not even been a week. For it to happen so publicly, right? And so graphic and violently, it just, it's very traumatic just to see it. And then within moments later, he's dead. He's gone, right? And you saw this outpouring from the Trump administration. And we knew that Charlie Kirk and President Trump had a very close relationship. But it certainly was not for show. I mean, when you see the way that Trump and J.D. Vance have handled that issue since then, it was real, right? Donald Trump Jr. said that Charlie Kirk was like a little brother to him. Sorry. Right? Those are people being real, right, about that. And there's no question. I don't think that Trump wins re-election without the work that Charlie Kirk was doing to get youth involved, to get them focused on the issue, and then to transfer that into, don't just talk about it, go make your voice heard at the ballot box. And we don't see that. A lot of times the younger vote, I don't want to say they get overlooked, but they just don't typically vote in strong numbers. And so do they make an impact? Maybe it just doesn't, it seems minor. I don't think that was the case this time around in the presidential election and other elections in the past 4 or 6 years because of the work that Turning Point USA has been doing, and Turning Point Action, or whatever their advocacy group's called, but so much with that lead by Charlie Kirk. And I will admit, okay, I probably never said this publicly. When we're doing our event, we're like, well, what's Charlie doing at his event? What's going on in America Fest? How are they getting so many people there, right? I mean, there's something they were doing that was generating a lot of that interest. And a lot of it was pride in being an American. Pride for the United States of America, right? The flag, the Trump hat, right? The Make America Great Again hat, right? I mean, he sort of made that famous and made it cool to wear that hat, right? I mean, how many hats do you see teenagers wearing these days that they're all kind of wearing the same thing, and, it's kind of simple. I mean, there's all kinds of varieties these days. But I did talk to my kids about it when I got back, and that day when I got home, and, it just, it's hard to find the right words because they were still in shock and just, trying to sort out why it would happen, and then to see the way people have reacted. And I'm not one to, get on social media and jump on other people about personality issues. I try to stay issue focused. That's just where I'm a little bit more comfortable and I have a little bit more experience. And I'm a constitutional attorney, right? First Amendment, I respect that. Fine. That's your view. Here's my view. But some of it was just too much. I mean, it just, and I mean, some of it was in moments, within hours of it happening, and I'm thinking, can you just not at least allow a little bit more time to show some consideration and, some empathy or whatever? I mean, the man's, I don't want to describe the circumstance. I mean, his life was taken in such a violent way so quickly. Young kids, young wife, right? You think of all the things they're trying to think of. And for everyone to see it, right, in such a public way that it was all over the news, and it just, so many things to, for those people closer to him, the closest to him, to come to terms with, is it really necessary for people? And, you disagree with them, okay, but there's no reason to be so callous about it. And if not suggest, and some people weren't even suggesting, I mean, it seemed like they were outright saying that he deserved it, or, celebrating his death. I mean, that hurt me, about America in this circumstance, knowing, and you sort of know maybe people are like that, or that's it, those things that may happen, but to see it was still, sad. And I wasn't real close to Charlie. Like I said earlier, I did get to meet him once, and, a member of our team has done work with Turning Point USA. But I felt like he does a lot of the same work I do, obviously at a larger and grander scale and stage, and in front of a lot more people and with a whole lot more impact and influence. But I've been doing this work for over 20 years. We're out speaking in public all the time. We know what it's like to get criticized and people to be ugly on social media and all that kind of stuff. And it was just magnified. And I just, it'd have been nice. And look, maybe that was the exception. Maybe most of the comments were, and I did see people on the right and the left saying, hey, I didn't like him, but I'm not a Republican or conservative, or I'm not a Christian, but the guy seemed to work really hard, and how devastating for this to happen to him and his family, and, a sad day for America, things like that. So anyway, I mean, I have the right words for all this, exactly what I want to say, but a lot of it is just acknowledging, what an awful thing to happen, for people to experience that, to see it so publicly. I thought of the assassination of JFK. I thought, gosh, that's what, that was in front of all these people. Such a glorious day that day, right? And maybe it hits us a little bit harder sometimes as Texans, right? Because he was going, a part of a motorcade going through Dallas, right? And we see, his wife at the time, right? The first lady, on him, right? I mean, it was all just right in front of us, right? And so this felt similar to that for me and maybe others, and so still a lot to reflect on, a lot to grieve, a lot to celebrate, if not celebrate, acknowledge, or just to say some good things about Charlie Kirk and the work that he was doing and his family and everybody that was a part of it, to know how much value he brought to people's lives and to our country. And it's remarkable to see someone at that age be able to have such an impact. In many ways, it felt like quickly. I know it built over years. And so probably be a lot. But at Texas Faith Fest, we're going to spend a little bit of time on that, right? We're gonna honor and give tribute. It's probably the better word I was thinking of earlier, not celebrate, but give tribute to, if you will, to, and we could, I'm sure there's a considerate way to celebrate the accomplishments in the, the impact. And Paula talked a little bit about this when she was on our show just a minute ago. The Christian witness that started to be heard a lot more and spoken a lot more for him. Maybe not just the political side and the issue side and, whatever he's going to be debating someone on campus and doing Q&A, but you heard him expressing a lot more. As a matter of fact, one of the last social media posts I think he posted was, it's all about Jesus, right? Nobody forces you to say that. These are things that he decided to stay. And I think that was, an opportunity, maybe, as Paula was saying, people decide, I'm going to pick up a Bible. I'm going to go to church this week, and maybe they haven't before, and I hope that, those that did will come back next Sunday or this Sunday, right? And we'll continue on that path that maybe Charlie helped them start. And, I don't know what the, what the future looks like for that organization. It seems like they've been overwhelmed with people that want to get involved, which is incredible, right? And what these days are going to be like moving forward for his wife, Erica, and their young children. But it's glad that they've got an incredible support network around them. And to see J.D. Vance host Charlie's show, I believe it was on Monday, the Vice President of the United States. And I do understand, in fact, I think I'm right about this, that President Trump said that they're going to posthumously, if you will, honor and award Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which I believe is the highest award or honor that you can receive as a citizen, right? There are other things you can get as a military service person. So and rightly so, right? And who better than Trump to be able to assess the impact and the appropriateness of such an award, with the fact that how close he and Charlie Kirk were and how much time they spent together. So, but we're going to take some time for that at our event, Texas Faith Fest, next week, September 26th and 27th. I look forward to it every year. It's not on my birthday this year. Sadly, that was a couple of years ago. But there'll be other reasons to celebrate. We can have some cake, whatever. We can get excited about these issues. A lot of victories to talk about. I'm going to interview the governor of the state of Texas. What a great opportunity. And I've got a couple of questions I thought of, Governor. I think you're going to know what to say, and you're going to have some great answers. But no, what an honor it is to be able to interview him, to have David Barton there, to have people like Paula Scanlan, Brooke Slusser, collegiate athlete. You've got all these other great people, Alliance Defending Freedom's Chelsea Yeoman, right? First Liberty Institute, where I started. One of their lawyers is going to be there. Some great activists locally, Michelle Evans, Christy Slate, Kristen Bentley, a lot of people that are going to be there and be a part of the event. Something to offer for everyone. And I'm going to tell you all this. We're going to do a better job than we've ever done this year of actually equipping you with some tools and information that you can use moving forward. I think we've done a fine job over the years of informing you, right? The event tagline is educate, motivate, and activate, right? So we've done the educate, we've done the motivate. If you've ever seen me on the stage sometimes with some, intro music, when I get all, hyped up and stuff, and I'm just trying to have a good time and get people excited. But what about the activate, right? We've done some of that, but I think, we did a lot of prep work for this event and felt like maybe we haven't done as much as we should be on that part of the event. So look for that. We're going to try to bring you a better product, and every year that's our goal. Let's make it bigger and better than the year before. Something different, something memorable. This event can change your life. All right. I've been to events like this when I was young. They changed my life. That I went and I thought, I know what I want to do now. I know where God's calling me. I know where I'm needed. All those different things. And also, we touched a little bit on this earlier, just to come together, right, and pray, right? Look, maybe there'll be some tears shed, right? And why wouldn't there be? Okay? When you think about someone like Charlie Kirk, when someone dies in such a violent way and a life is taken so senselessly, that always hurts more. I mean, it just feels like it does, right? And then to also realize a life cut short so young, 31 years old, but also to realize that it feels like it wasn't just an attack on him. It was an attack on us too, all of us, those of us that share these values, that are becoming more expressive about our Christian faith. Right? It makes you nervous. Somebody in my family said, Dad, do you ever, think this might happen to you? Right? I don't say that in a, look, I'm nowhere near the impact that Charlie was having, but it makes everyone feel, I think, a little less safe when these things happen, right? And that's what some people want, right? That's what evil wants. That's what Satan wants, right? They want us to be afraid to speak the truth. And I think Charlie Kirk understood that he had some risk involved, but he also realized that he had a responsibility to tell the truth. And the fact that, he was so committed to his Christian faith, he felt at peace at, if something were to happen, that this is what the Lord would want. And obviously, I'm sure, that's not what any of us are looking for. We want an America where we continue to learn how to balance these things, right? To have a robust First Amendment, but also for people to not become hostile just because we have disagreements. And that goes for both sides. I do think, certainly in more recent history, we've seen a lot more, response from the left, the other side, that's much more violent. I thought this was interesting that people have talked about, have there been any riots? Have there been any, stores being looted and all the stuff that we see sometimes from the other side, if you will, in Charlie Kirk's death and assassination, and we haven't seen that, and I hope we don't at any time, and it's not like, I'm saying all the people that are on our side are perfect, but I do think there has been some difference in how these circumstances are handled, and maybe people will see a pathway forward where we'll see more of things. I hope these tragedies don't happen, but if, God forbid that they do, that it's not worsened by the way people react. And so in this circumstance, I feel like we want to create that opportunity with Texas Faith Fest next week to bring people together that care about these issues, to know they've got a place where, people share their values and also understand the importance of moving forward and doing the work that we were called to do, whether it's in public or private. And college campuses can be some of the most important places to be in order to engage people and for them to hear the truth. So, all right, if I haven't sold you yet, I don't know what else I could say. Chick-fil-A on Friday, barbecue on Saturday. Some great sponsors. We've got our good friends at Eagle Peak Shooting Range that is owned by Jim Day, Vincent Mona Puente Foundation, Rodenbaugh's Flooring America, Kitchen, Bed, and Bath up in the Allen area, John Paul II Life Center, our local friends, our sponsors, Commissioner Christy Craddock, and Senator Mays Middleton, and a lot more we'll have in the program and other places. Thank you to all those amazing sponsors. If you want to sponsor the event, get some visibility for your name and your business, still time to do that. We're printing our program, I think, tomorrow, but maybe we can do something digitally. A lot of great booths, different organizations that are going to be there. Like I said, something to offer for everyone next week. TexasFaithFest.com. Go to that website, September 26th, 27th, before the tickets sell out. Hey, listen, appreciate, some of the kind words we've received over the past week, and the way that people have been, tender towards us and realize the value in reaching out and connecting and seeing how you're doing and those things. And so we sincerely appreciate that. And look, if you see value in our work, make a donation. Okay, please, today. The summer months, September, this event, all right, is not a revenue generator, if you will. It's not that we're making money. We just try to cover our costs, but it is a very expensive event. We're spending more on security this year. We're not going to shut the event down. We're not going to limit the event, but we are going to add security. We think that's important. There's nothing wrong with trying to be safe. Charlie had security at his events. These are things that we want to do. We also want people to feel like we are looking out for their safety, but the show must go on, and we're going to have our event. So those are some costs that are increasing. Just another reason to consider donating to continue to make events like this happen. Go to our website, txvalues.org. Make that tax-deductible donation today, and that's how together we can protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.